Canadians are bracing for another potential Bank of Canada interest rate hike tomorrow, with better than expected economic growth putting pressure on the bank to rein in inflation. The Tories are threatening to block the budget implementation bill, accusing the feds of making the bank's job harder and insisting Liberals set out a path to balance the books. Let's talk about that with the front bench. Brian Gallant, Lisa Raitt, Tom Mulcair, and Rob Benzie are back. Rob, I'll start with you. If Canadians are not consumed with foreign interference, I think it's fair to say they are with an affordability crisis, and they are with the thought of further hikes to interest rates. What do you think strategically is behind the Conservatives' decision to talk about the budget implementation bill and try and force a path to balance?
I think it's smart politics, Vassy, because you and I have talked about this a lot. The affordability crisis is what people are really concerned with, I think. It's what people I'm talking to are talking about. They're not talking about China meddling. They're talking about the price of lettuce or the price of gasoline or, interest rate hikes that are going to affect their mortgages. A lot of people are already overextended. We've had historically low interests for years. So a lot of people got into the market when it was, crazy low, and now that it's still relatively low in the rich sweep of history, but it's not 3% anymore, and that's going to be very, very tough for people to manage. If your mortgage payment is your biggest bill, and for most people it is, tomorrow could be and you're on a variable mortgage, tomorrow could be a pretty rough day. So I think that I don't blame the Tories for doing this as a political stunt, but I think they have to understand that they can't filibuster the summer away. I think they have to make their point and then pivot to the barbecue circuit, where they're going to be selling their alternative message to Canadians.
Tom, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, the Liberals have everything that they need in their toolbox to put an end to that debate. They can impose some form of closure, but it will become a very difficult moment for Mr. Singh, who has promised to back Mr. Trudeau on all confidence motions. But if he winds up approving and in fact seconding Mr. Trudeau in imposing the end of a parliamentary debate, that could become uncomfortable for him. I also think that it's interesting to note that Pierre Poilievre has finally figured out that Tiff Macklem is not his political opponent. Maybe the people around him have finally made him realize that, because of course that was his big shining moment during his leadership campaign. He was going to fire the governor of the Bank of Canada. Macklem, if he does wind up raising interest rates, and it looks like he might just, Poilievre has a ready-made answer now. He's going after Trudeau about that, about his refusal to come up with a horizon where Canada can get back to balanced budgets. Stick with Trudeau. He's your adversary. Macklem is not. So it is a bit of a sea change for Poilievre, who seems to have figured that one out.
I think that's a really salient point, Brian, because I was listening to the entire press conference Mr. Poilievre gave, and it was different in a tone. It was very much pointed on the government and saying the government, as I sort of framed it that way in the introduction for that reason, the government is making the bank's job harder. It was not singling out the bank or the Bank of Canada's governor at all, which is a change from what happened during the leadership race pretty extensively, actually. The question is whether or not that resonates with Canadians. Like, do they buy that if they face another interest rate hike tomorrow, they can blame at least partially the government?
Well, let me start off by saying that I think attacking Tiff Macklem, attacking an institution, was probably, in Poilievre's eyes, a better tactical political move during the leadership. Probably more of a galvanizing thing that would help sign up members and get people activated to vote for Poilievre. During a sort of period in which you're trying to get to the general public for an election, attacking the Prime Minister makes a lot more sense. So I think that's probably what's happening. And again, I've said this many times, Poilievre is an astute politician, and tactically that makes sense. I don't like the idea of attacking institutions for nothing and for political gain, but nevertheless, tactically it kind of makes sense. Rob, I think, is right to say that good politics to focus on affordability, and to your point, Vassy, trying to find ways in which to link the issues of inflation, the issues with interest rates to the Prime Minister and his government. Look, we're talking about it. It gets a headline if you say you're going to filibuster, block the budget, basically not allow it to pass. The only caveat is that the first day you do that, the first few days maybe, is probably a positive. It gets more complicated as days go by, though, and it gets a little more complicated because Trudeau was doing it today. The Prime Minister and his government will try to say, well, you're blocking this incentive and this investment and this thing that'll help Canadians. So there will be a bit of a game as time goes on. The first day, first couple of days, probably a bit of a win for Poilievre. It gets people thinking that he's trying to do something with regards to the issue they care the most about, to Rob's point. Tom, I have to say that I'm not sure, though, on the NDP. Yes, Mr. Singh and the team will feel like, can we really help them with closure if they need to do that to sort of end the debate? They'll debate it and they'll feel, icky about it. But at the end of the day, I don't think Canadians are really looking at when Parliament ends. And in fact, I think it's only the MPs that have the pressure and they want to go home, they want to see their families and go into their communities for the barbecue season.
I guess, although it does create another one of those awkward moments for Jagmeet Singh, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of part of our interview as well, where you say you oppose something, but then ultimately in the House of Commons, your actions show something different. Last word to you on this, Lisa.
Yeah, so the Bank of Canada is going to come out with their interest rate, at whatever it's going to be, on Wednesday, and the jobs numbers actually come out on Friday. And that makes it really interesting because they're going to have to do this a bit blindly to see how well the economy is doing or not doing. One thing that the economists at CIBC are talking about, though, is how long is this inflation going to last, and whether or not the Bank of Canada is going to overshoot a soft landing for the economy as it continues to increase its interest rates. And I think Poilievre has really caught on to something, which is he's showing the fact that the Bank of Canada is doing what it can. It is doing what it should be doing, which is increasing interest rates. But at the same time, the federal government is just shoveling money out the door and making more and more spending. And he's equating the government spending too much with the reason why your interest rates are going up. And I think it's going to take hold. I think it's going to be something that's easily understandable. I accept all the economists who are going to argue with me about this. It's not about the economist theory. It is really about politics at this point, and the Conservatives have nailed it.
And maybe a more salient political point than pinning all the blame on the Bank of Canada's governor. I'm going to leave our discussion there. Thank you so much, everyone, for it. Rob Benzie, Tom Mulcair, Lisa Raitt, and Brian Gallant.